The message arrived without warning. At first, nobody believed it was real. Across the galaxy, in places separated by thousands of light-years and civilizations older than entire star clusters, communication systems suddenly flickered. Trading stations orbiting dying suns paused their broadcasts. Military command centers lost contact with active fleets for exactly 3 seconds. Deep space observatories tracking black holes reported inexplicable signal interference. Even the ancient quantum archives beneath the Galactic Council chamber, systems that had operated flawlessly for over 80,000 years, momentarily went dark. Then every screen illuminated. The same message appeared everywhere. No sender. No encryption signature. No diplomatic identification. No security clearance. Just 7 simple words. Do not approach Earth. The sentence hovered in cold white letters against black backgrounds, stark and impossible to ignore. It appeared simultaneously on civilian networks, military channels, private communication grids, and classified government systems. The synchronization alone should have been impossible. Entire empires possessed technology capable of manipulating stars, yet none could explain how a message had bypassed every known security protocol in existence. For a long moment, the galaxy seemed to stop breathing. On the council world of Arcanis Prime, representatives from hundreds of species stared at the floating holographic display dominating the center of the chamber. The enormous hall was usually filled with constant discussion, political maneuvering, and endless debate. Now there was only silence. A silence heavy enough to feel physical. Counselor Vathal, whose species had witnessed the rise and fall of 3 galactic ages, narrowed his ancient eyes at the message. Something felt wrong. Not threatening. Worse. Urgent. The wording wasn't a declaration of war. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even a warning backed by force. It felt like a desperate plea. And that unsettled him far more than any threat could have. Around him, whispers slowly began spreading through the chamber. Earth? The human homeworld? What are they hiding? Some new weapon? Another territorial dispute? The questions multiplied. Humanity's reputation offered few answers. They were newcomers by galactic standards. Ambitious. Adaptable. Occasionally reckless. Their ships were effective but unremarkable. Their territory was small compared to the sprawling domains of elder civilizations. They had contributed to science, trade, and exploration, but nothing that justified such a dramatic announcement. Certainly nothing capable of alarming the entire galaxy. Then someone laughed. A short, dismissive chuckle that echoed through the chamber. Another joined. Then another. Within moments, amusement spread across entire rows of delegates. The tension began to crack. Some called it a publicity stunt. Others assumed humanity had discovered a rare resource and wanted to keep competitors away. A few joked that humans had finally become paranoid enough to believe the galaxy revolved around them. The laughter grew louder. But not everyone joined in. Several military observers remained silent. So did the intelligence directors. Because while others focused on the message itself, they were studying something else. The transmission logs. Every analysis returned the same impossible conclusion. Nobody could determine where the signal had originated. Not Earth. Not Sol. Not anywhere. The message appeared to have emerged from every point in space simultaneously. As if the galaxy itself had spoken. Far beyond the council chamber, stars continued burning in the endless darkness. Trade routes remained busy. Civilizations carried on with their daily lives. Yet beneath the surface, something had changed. A subtle feeling. A crack in certainty. Because despite the laughter, despite the skepticism, despite every logical explanation offered by experts and politicians alike, one question refused to disappear. If humanity truly wanted attention, why send only 7 words? And if they were afraid? What could possibly frighten a species enough to warn an entire galaxy away from its own world? Somewhere in the vast darkness beyond known space, an answer waited. And before long, the galaxy would wish it had listened. The journey to Earth began beneath a sky that did not belong to any single world. From the vast observation deck of the exploration flagship Vigilant Horizon, Council observer Varek stood in silence, watching stars stretch into rivers of light as the fleet transitioned through hyperspace. The transparent alloy viewport curved around him like a crystal dome, revealing a universe in motion, colors bending, constellations warping, distant galaxies smearing into brilliant streaks across the darkness. Beneath his feet, the deck vibrated with the steady pulse of the ship's quantum engines, a reminder of the immense power carrying them toward humanity's home system. The mission should have been routine. Investigate the warning. Determine its source. Report findings to the Galactic Council. Nothing more. Yet Varek couldn't shake the feeling growing inside him. The feeling that they were traveling toward something they did not understand. Behind him, officers moved between holographic displays projecting real-time navigation data. Streams of glowing symbols floated through the command center like drifting ghosts. Voices remained calm, professional, almost casual. To most of the crew, Earth was merely another destination. Another young civilization surrounded by unnecessary mystery. But Varek kept replaying the message in his mind. Do not approach Earth. 7 words. No explanation. No demand. Just certainty. And certainty frightened him. 3 days later, hyperspace released the fleet into the outer reaches of the Sol system. The transition was smooth. Too smooth. As the distortion field faded, the command deck filled with the soft glow of a yellow star hanging against the endless black. Sol. Humanity's sun. The birthplace of a species that had somehow managed to capture the attention of the entire galaxy. For a moment, nothing seemed unusual. Asteroids drifted peacefully through distant belts. Frozen planets circled silently in the darkness. Sensor arrays scanned millions of kilometers in every direction and detected no hidden armadas, no superweapons, no defensive formations capable of threatening a Council fleet. If Earth possessed a secret, it remained invisible. The fleet advanced. Dozens of silver warships glided forward in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting sunlight like polished blades. Massive carrier vessels floated among sleek reconnaissance cruisers. Energy shields shimmered faintly around each vessel, creating ghostly halos in the vacuum of space. The sight would have inspired awe on most worlds. To Varek, it suddenly felt intrusive. As though they were crossing a boundary they had been specifically asked not to cross. Hours passed. The fleet moved deeper into the solar system. Then Earth appeared. At first it was merely a blue sphere on distant screens. But as the ships approached, details emerged. White clouds spiraled across vast oceans. Golden city lights glittered across the night side. Storm systems swirled above continents painted in shades of green and brown. It was beautiful. Shockingly beautiful. Not because it was unique. But because it seemed ordinary. Peaceful. Alive. The homeworld looked nothing like a military fortress. Nothing like the source of a galactic warning. Then a transmission arrived. A human broadcast. Every communication channel aboard the fleet activated simultaneously. The voice was calm. Measured. Almost tired. No hostility. No panic. Just repetition. This is the Sol Containment Authority. Do not approach Earth. Alter course immediately. The message repeated again. And again. And again. Varek stared at the glowing planet suspended in darkness. Something about the transmission disturbed him. Not the words. The tone. It sounded less like a threat, and more like someone standing before a locked door while a storm raged on the other side. Someone desperately hoping nobody would open it. The fleet continued forward. Orders were orders. Questions demanded answers. Yet as Earth slowly grew larger against the stars, a strange silence settled over the command deck. Conversations became quieter. Smiles faded. Even the sensors seemed to whisper rather than speak. And for the first time since entering the solar system, Council observer Varek found himself wishing they had turned back when the warning first arrived. Because deep inside, beyond logic and beyond reason, he felt an instinct older than civilization itself. A predator's instinct. The instinct that recognized danger long before the mind could understand it. And it was screaming. The first ship vanished at 3:17 shipboard time. No explosion. No warning. No distress signal. One moment the reconnaissance cruiser Aegis Wing occupied its designated position within the fleet formation, its transponder broadcasting normally across every sensor network. The next moment, it was simply gone. The holographic tactical display flickered. A bright marker disappeared. Silence followed. For several seconds, nobody spoke. On the command deck of the Vigilant Horizon, officers stared at their stations, convinced it had to be a malfunction. Sensor systems were recalibrated. Communication channels reopened. Long-range scans swept the surrounding space. Nothing. The cruiser had vanished without leaving behind a single atom of debris. No energy discharge. No gravitational disturbance. No warp signature. No evidence that it had ever existed at all. Contact the vessel immediately, Captain Ress ordered. The communications officer obeyed. Again. And again. And again. Only static answered. A cold sensation crawled up Varek's spine. He watched technicians work frantically as streams of data flooded the command center. Every report contradicted everything known about physics. Matter did not simply disappear. Ships did not blink out of reality. Yet that was exactly what had happened. The fleet slowed its advance. For nearly an hour, investigations continued. Explanations were proposed. A cloaking accident. An experimental human weapon. A navigation system failure. None fit the evidence. Then the second ship disappeared. This time everyone saw it happen. The destroyer Celestial Spear drifted less than 2,000 kilometers from the flagship. External cameras tracked it clearly against the backdrop of distant stars. One frame. The ship existed. The next frame. Empty space. Gasps echoed throughout the bridge. Several officers rose from their stations in disbelief. Someone dropped a data slate. The sharp metallic impact sounded unnaturally loud in the stunned silence. Impossible, whispered a sensor analyst. Varek found himself gripping the railing so tightly his hands hurt. Fear was spreading now. Real fear. Not the distant caution of diplomats. Not the calculated concern of military officers. Primitive fear. The kind that lived deep inside every intelligent species. The fear of encountering something beyond understanding. As the fleet cautiously advanced, reality itself began behaving strangely. Navigation systems reported microscopic inconsistencies in distance measurements. Atomic clocks aboard different ships drifted apart by fractions of seconds despite perfect synchronization. Star positions shifted slightly between sensor sweeps. Not enough to trigger alarms. Enough to raise questions. Crew members began reporting unusual experiences. A pilot claimed he heard someone whispering his childhood nickname through an inactive headset. An engineer swore she briefly saw another version of herself reflected in a maintenance panel. Security officers investigating the reports found nothing. No evidence. No explanation. Yet the stories multiplied. Whispers spread through corridors. Sleep became difficult. Every shadow seemed darker than before. Every silence lasted a little too long. Then came the voices. At first they emerged as faint distortions hidden beneath normal communications traffic. Random sounds. Fragments of words. Background noise. But over time they became clearer. More deliberate. Dozens of ships recorded the same phenomenon simultaneously. Soft voices speaking in languages no translator could identify. Sometimes pleading. Sometimes laughing. Sometimes simply repeating names of crew members who had never transmitted personal information beyond their own vessels. The recordings chilled everyone who heard them. Especially because the voices seemed to originate from empty space itself. Varek listened to one recording in private. A female voice whispered a sentence he couldn't understand. Yet somehow he felt certain of its meaning. Run. The realization left him staring silently into darkness. Outside the viewport, Earth continued growing larger. Beautiful. Peaceful. Unchanged. Blue oceans reflected sunlight. Clouds drifted lazily across continents. From a distance, it looked like paradise. And that somehow made everything worse. Because whatever was happening here, whatever force was swallowing ships and bending reality, it wasn't visible. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't revealing itself. It was simply waiting. Then, as the fleet crossed another invisible threshold toward Earth, warning sirens suddenly erupted across the command deck. A third ship had disappeared. Then a fourth. Then an entire squadron vanished within seconds. No explosions. No wreckage. No trace. Only empty space where hundreds of lives had existed moments before. And as panic began spreading through the fleet, one horrifying thought settled into Varek's mind. The disappearances were no longer random. Something had noticed them. And it was getting closer. The truth arrived hidden inside a transmission humanity never intended anyone to hear. By the time the fleet reached the orbit of Jupiter, panic had become impossible to contain. Entire squadrons had vanished. Crews were reporting hallucinations. Navigation systems were drifting farther from reality with every passing hour. Even the most disciplined officers no longer hid the fear in their eyes. And still, Earth continued transmitting the same warning. Do not approach Earth. On the bridge of the vigilant horizon, exhausted analysts searched through billions of intercepted data fragments, desperate for answers. Most of the signals were heavily encrypted. Military traffic. Scientific telemetry. Emergency communications between orbital stations. Then one transmission slipped through. A mistake. A damaged relay. Or perhaps something far more deliberate. The file carried the highest human security classification ever recorded. Every system aboard the flagship automatically flagged it. The moment it was decrypted, silence consumed the command deck. The recording began with static. Then a voice. Old. Tired. Human. This archive is authorized for release only in the event of containment failure. The word sent a chill through the room. A holographic image materialized above the command floor. It showed Earth. Not the Earth they knew. Not the peaceful blue world visible through their telescopes. This Earth was surrounded by enormous structures hidden beyond normal detection ranges. Thousands of them. Ancient rings. Orbital lattices. Moon-sized installations buried in gravitational blind spots. An entire network wrapped around the planet like chains. Gasps echoed throughout the bridge. The recording continued. 73 years ago, humanity initiated Project Sentinel after the discovery of an anomaly beneath quantum space. The holographic display changed. Scientists appeared. Research stations. Deep space experiments. Then footage from a mission that had never appeared in any galactic database. A human vessel entering a region beyond conventional reality. A place where space itself seemed fractured. A place that should not exist. Varek watched in stunned silence as the video showed the moment everything changed. The explorers found something. Not technology. Not a civilization. Something alive. The footage deteriorated instantly afterward. Systems failed. Cameras distorted. Crew members screamed. And through the static, something moved. A shape too vast for the mind to comprehend. A darkness that seemed to consume the image itself. Several officers looked away. Others froze completely. The recording paused. Then the human narrator spoke again. The entity predates known cosmic history. It existed before the formation of most stars in the galactic disk. We do not know its origin. We do not know its purpose. We only know it feeds. The room felt colder. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even breathing seemed loud. The hologram zoomed toward Earth. Toward the moon. Toward structures hidden beneath lunar rock. What appeared next shattered every assumption the Galactic Council had ever made about humanity. Earth was not humanity's fortress. It was humanity's prison. And humanity was its jailer. For decades, billions of humans had unknowingly lived above the most dangerous entity ever discovered. Entire generations had worked, fought, and sacrificed to maintain the containment system surrounding their world. The orbital installations. The lunar facilities. The hidden fleets. Everything existed for one purpose. To keep the thing asleep. To keep it trapped. To keep the rest of the galaxy alive. Then came the final revelation. The disappearances. The vanished ships. The whispers. The distortions in time and space. Human scientists had predicted them all. The entity was stirring. And every vessel entering the containment zone weakened the prison further. Every ship that vanished had not been destroyed. It had been consumed. Fed directly into the thing waiting beneath reality. The realization hit the bridge like a physical blow. Humanity had never threatened the galaxy. Humanity had never hidden a superweapon. Humanity had never been protecting itself. The warning had been genuine from the beginning. A desperate plea. A final attempt to stop curious civilizations from walking blindly toward catastrophe. The transmission ended with one final message. A single sentence recorded decades earlier. A sentence spoken by the original commander of Project Sentinel. His face appeared on the hologram, illuminated by emergency lights and exhaustion. Behind him, warning alarms echoed endlessly. His eyes looked directly into the camera. Directly into the future. And with a voice heavy from carrying an impossible burden, he said, "If you are watching this, then we have already failed to keep you away." The recording ended. No one spoke. Beyond the bridge windows, Earth hung peacefully against the stars. Beautiful. Silent. Blue. And for the first time, the fleet understood what humanity had truly been saying all along. They were not warning the galaxy about themselves. They were warning the galaxy about what was sleeping beneath them. And something was beginning to wake. The moment the prison broke, the universe screamed. It began as a fracture. A thin line of darkness appearing high above Earth's orbit, cutting across the stars like a wound carved into reality itself. At first it seemed harmless, nothing more than a distortion in the vacuum. Then the line widened. And widened. And widened. Across the fleet, alarms erupted simultaneously. Red warning lights flooded corridors. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. Sensor arrays overloaded so violently that entire consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Council observer Varek gripped the command railing as the tactical display dissolved into chaos. Space was tearing open. Not metaphorically. Not visually. Actually tearing. The black fracture stretched thousands of kilometers across the heavens, swallowing starlight around its edges. Light bent toward it. Gravity twisted around it. Even time seemed to hesitate in its presence. Then something moved inside. Every instinct Varek possessed screamed at him to look away. He couldn't. No one could. Beyond the breach existed a darkness deeper than empty space. A darkness so complete that it felt alive. Watching. Hungry. Ancient. The whispers that had haunted the fleet for days suddenly became deafening. Voices poured through every communication channel. Millions of them. Human. Alien. Known languages. Unknown languages. Some crying. Some begging. Some laughing with horrifying joy. The entity was awake. Panic spread instantly. Council ships turned away from Earth, engines igniting at maximum output. Formation discipline vanished. Military precision collapsed. Captains shouted contradictory orders while navigation systems struggled to calculate escape vectors. But the breach kept growing. As if reality itself had become fragile paper being ripped apart by invisible hands. Then humanity revealed its final secret. Across Earth, hidden launch facilities activated. Beneath oceans. Inside mountain ranges. Within lunar caverns buried beneath kilometers of stone. Across asteroid stations disguised as mining colonies. Thousands of concealed warships emerged simultaneously. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. Entire fleets humanity had hidden from the galaxy for generations. The sight stole the breath from everyone watching. Massive carriers rose from the Pacific Ocean through walls of steam and water. Orbital defense platforms unfolded from structures that had appeared inactive for decades. Moon-based shipyards opened like metallic flowers, releasing squadrons into space. Humanity had not spent 70 years building a prison. They had spent 70 years preparing for the day it failed. The command channels exploded with activity. Varek listened as human officers coordinated across vast distances with astonishing calm. No panic. No confusion. Only determination. They had rehearsed this moment. They had expected this moment. And now they were facing it. A transmission suddenly spread across every frequency in the solar system. A human admiral appeared on countless screens. Her uniform was scarred. Her face exhausted. Behind her, emergency lights flashed red. She looked directly into the camera. Directly at the fleeing fleet. "We are initiating containment protocol Omega." No speeches. No dramatic declarations. Just acceptance. The kind carried by people who already understood the cost. One by one, human vessels accelerated toward the breach. Not away from it. Toward it. Varek stared in disbelief. They weren't attacking the entity. They were reinforcing the prison. Each ship carried a quantum core specifically designed to stabilize reality itself. The detonation would permanently destroy the vessel and everyone aboard. A one-way mission. No survivors. Yet the formation never hesitated. Thousands of ships advanced together. Like soldiers marching into a storm they knew they could never escape. The first detonations lit the darkness. Blinding flashes erupted around the breach. Golden arcs of energy stitched fragments of reality back together. The tear slowed. Then resisted. Then began to close. The entity fought back. Shadows erupted from the fracture, consuming entire squadrons in seconds. Warships vanished. Crews died. The whispers became screams. Still humanity advanced. Still the detonations continued. Every sacrifice bought another moment. Another meter. Another chance. Varek watched in stunned silence as ship after ship disappeared into brilliant light. Human pilots transmitted final messages to their families. Engineers remained at failing reactors to ensure successful detonations. Captains stayed aboard doomed flagships until the very last second. None of them ran. None of them surrendered. Because they understood something the rest of the galaxy finally saw. If Earth fell, everything fell. At the center of the formation, the final command vessel accelerated directly into the heart of the breach. The Admiral's voice echoed across every channel one last time. Steady. Fearless. Unbroken. Hold the line. A brilliant white light erupted across the solar system. The darkness recoiled. Reality sealed. And for one impossible moment, the galaxy witnessed the truth of humanity. Not conquerors. Not warriors. Not heroes seeking glory. Guardians. The last guardians standing between existence and the thing that waited beyond it. And they were willing to burn themselves away to keep the universe alive. The monument could be seen from orbit. Suspended above the capital world of the Galactic Council, it drifted silently against a sea of stars, a structure so vast that passing vessels often mistook it for a moon. Its surface was forged from obsidian black alloy harvested from collapsed neutron stars, polished until it reflected entire constellations across its curved face. No weapons protected it. No defensive fleets guarded it. None were necessary. Because every civilization in the galaxy understood what it represented. And what it had cost. 10 years had passed since the day the breach above Earth closed. 10 years since the darkness retreated. 10 years since humanity sacrificed an entire generation of ships and countless lives to save worlds that had ignored their warning. The galaxy had survived. But it had never truly recovered. Council observer Varek stood aboard a diplomatic shuttle descending toward the memorial platform. Age had silvered parts of his skin and slowed his movements, yet the memories remained untouched. Sometimes, in quiet moments, he still saw the breach opening above Earth. Still heard the whispers pouring from the darkness. Still remembered the terrible certainty that existence itself had nearly ended. Around him, delegates from hundreds of species gathered in silence. No political arguments. No rivalries. No negotiations. Only remembrance. The memorial ceremony occurred once every cycle, drawing visitors from every corner of known space. Pilgrims traveled for months simply to stand before the monument and read the inscription etched across its face. As Varek stepped onto the platform, cool artificial wind moved gently through the open structure. Above him, stars glimmered beyond transparent shielding. The atmosphere felt almost sacred. A place built not for worship, but for gratitude. The crowd moved slowly toward the center chamber. There, illuminated by soft white light, stood the inscription. Simple. Unchanged. The exact message humanity had transmitted before the disaster. Do not approach Earth. Nothing more. Visitors often paused when they first saw it. Because the meaning had changed. Once, those words had sounded arrogant. Suspicious. Even threatening. Now they felt heartbreaking. A warning offered by people carrying a burden no one else understood. A plea ignored by an entire galaxy. Varek looked around the chamber. Children from distant worlds studied the inscription with wide eyes. Veterans stood motionless beside former enemies. Representatives from civilizations that had once mocked humanity lowered their heads in quiet respect. History classes taught the facts. The prison. The entity. The sacrifice. But facts alone could never capture the truth. The truth was emotional. Humanity had been afraid. Not for themselves. For everyone else. A soft chime echoed through the memorial hall. The ceremony had begun. A holographic display appeared above the crowd. Faces materialized in the air. Human faces. Pilots. Engineers. Scientists. Civilian workers. Thousands of individuals who had given their lives during Containment Protocol Omega. No dramatic music accompanied the display. No heroic narration. Only silence. One face after another. Ordinary people. That was what struck Varek most. Not legends. Not mythical warriors. Just people. People who had chosen duty over survival. As the final image faded, another inscription emerged beneath the original warning. Words added by unanimous vote of the Galactic Council after the crisis ended. Varek had helped write them. Yet reading them still tightened something inside his chest. The chamber grew completely still. Even breathing seemed to stop. Beneath the ancient warning, glowing letters appeared across the black stone. The bravest species in the galaxy were not guarding their world from us. The sentence lingered. Then the second line appeared. They were guarding us from what waited beneath theirs. No applause followed. No speeches. Only silence. The kind of silence reserved for truths too large for words. Beyond the transparent dome, distant stars continued burning across the endless darkness. Somewhere far away, Earth still circled its sun. Blue oceans still reflected sunlight. Children still laughed beneath open skies. Life continued because countless humans had ensured it would. Varek looked toward those distant stars and allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had once been dismissed as young. Impulsive. Unimportant. History remembered them differently now. Not as conquerors. Not as rulers. But as guardians who stood alone when no one else understood the danger. Guardians who carried the weight of an entire galaxy. And when the darkness finally came, they did not ask who deserved saving. They saved everyone. That was their legacy. And long after stars faded and civilizations became dust, the galaxy would remember the species that faced the end of existence, and refused to step aside.